Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to a special edition of the All We Do Is Talk podcast. We got wild card weekend wrapped up, getting ready for divisional, but we got to recap. I'm here with Isaiah Moody. How we doing today, guys?
What's good, y'all?
Depressed.
How y'all doing?
Very, very depressed. Let's just
Woody's
get
toughing
it
it
out
out.
the way.
Hey, first ever super wild card weekend that extended for 3 days. I mean, it was something. Definitely something.
I wouldn't call it good.
All right, well, we'll get to Moody's pain, but let's start on Saturday. Let's begin in Cincinnati, where Cincinnati beat the Las Vegas Raiders 26-19.
It's sad, but this is probably the best game of the weekend. On that,
You lying. You know what was the best game of the weekend.
As far as like competitiveness and kind of well played, I think this is closer to being the best game of the weekend. But either one, we know what one of the two options are. Great, awesome for Cincinnati. Obviously, that's how you start off with 30 years without a playoff win. Great on them to go out there and get the job done. Joe Burrow looks very, very comfortable and at home in big time playoff games. Him and Jamar Chase, that connection just. It transcends no matter where they're playing, no matter the competition. Those two guys are going to be great if they're given the opportunity to be great. And the Vegas Raiders clearly didn't have the game plan to stop him. They said we're going to play him one-on-one with some guy named Faxon, and it didn't work out for him. Joe Burrow looked at him and looked at Jamar Chase and just threw the ball to him at every chance he had. A little bit of run game helped them hang on, but good overall, I think, first playoff performance for Joe Burrow and the Bengals from the offensive end. Obviously, controversial touchdown that they didn't deserve, but did at the same time. We can talk about how bad the refs are.
They were bad all weekend.
We'll get into it very much so as we go on. But solid win for the Bengals in their first playoff appearance. For Vegas, a team that didn't really belong here. We can we'll go and say that they shouldn't have been here, but they fought like hell, and with all the adversity they had to overcome, they put themselves in a position to have this opportunity. So congrats to them. They played I thought they played very well. They competed, especially on defense when it looked like it was going to get out of hand. Derek Carr strip sack. This game looked like it was going to be over early, but their defense competed. They hung in there. They forced them to multiple field goals on times where it looked like they were just going to get put away. And Derek Carr's a good enough quarterback to keep him in it. Now, unfortunately, guys like Deshaun Jackson and Zay Jones were just folding. They just were not going out there and making the plays that Derek Carr needed them to make to get them out of there.
Wasn't protected too well.
Wasn't protected that great. And then obviously they just shot themselves in the foot. Whenever those things weren't happening, they decided to shoot themselves in the foot. Every third down seems like a penalty was taking it off the board. You can't have a performance where you commit double-digit penalties and expect to beat a good football team in the playoffs. It was the Raiders' biggest weakness all year. Their discipline, their inability to stop committing penalties. It cost them here again, and that's why they're going home.
Yeah, so as for Cincinnati, a good game from Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. That is what it is. We just refer to that as that. As for their defense was impressive, is what I would say. Good pass rush from Sam Hubbard and Mr. Trey Hendrickson, proven he's worth his money. Good game from Chidobe Awuzie. Decent game from Eli Apple and the other accessory cornerbacks they have. They have Trey Flowers. They have Vernon Hargreaves. They got a bunch of corners that at least have pedigree. But pretty ho-hum game after the Derek Carr turnover, which is probably the biggest play of the game that matters. They just didn't overcome it. And Vegas kept fighting. They just kept fighting, but I guess the last thing this is the last time we'll talk about Vegas before the end of the playoffs. So I guess for Vegas, I think looking forward for them. They're gonna have to figure out what they do with Derek Carr. Mm-hmm. I think Darren Waller's a good piece. Really, probably the only elite player on their offense outside of Colton Miller.
Yeah, I would say so.
Josh Jacobs did have a good game in this game. He showed me something this year. He's a good running back. But they're gonna have to figure out what they do with Derek Carr and defensively. I mean,
I think Gus Bradley's scheme is one of those schemes where it can raise the level of poor defensive talent. Casey Hayward was really, really good throughout this year. I thought they hit on a guy named Hobbs, Trayvon Moray. They got a couple of guys back there like you can be a serviceable player in the right scheme, but you don't know they don't really have any superstars on either side of the ball.
But then the key was how good Max Crosby was for them, and also Yannick Ngakoue. Crosby looks like a future star. Hopefully Yannick holds up until his contract is cuttable.
Mhm.
But as for Vegas, I don't believe they'll be keeping Bisaccia anymore.
I mean, they're already interviewing other coaches.
And they got rid of Mike Mayock. So for coaching wise for them, I mean, Jim Harbaugh that's my
I
they gotta
think
do
the
whatever it
rumor
takes.
is Harbaugh's waiting for them to call him up. I think they got rid of Mike Mayock for this reason, to set this all up. It seems like it's pretty much destiny at this point. They need a big name culture changer type of guy.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric. You could talk about the game and also how you feel about Vegas going forward.
Yeah, obviously I loved Cincinnati winning this game. It didn't really hit me until they were playing the game that if they tied, they'd be playing the Chargers, which would have been a much harder matchup. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I think Joe Burrow was great. You had their head coach going out to bars, giving out game balls to drunk fans, and good, crazy to be the first playoff victory in our lifetime, which is nuts. But
I heard a stat and it said O.J. Simpson was working for NBC the last time the Bengals won a playoff game.
There were no text messaging. Like that's the one we've all seen. Like it's been a long
31
time.
years. Wow.
But yeah, good for them. I believe in this team. I'll have a take in our next podcast for the divisional that will go against these two boys, but either or. But yeah, great win for the Bengals.
And as for the Vegas going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think they need to just rebuild, new GM, new coach. I would see what you can get for Derek Carr. I would probably keep Jacobs and Waller so you have a weapon for your response to the quarterback. Because we've seen plenty of cases where you trade everything and the quarterback has nothing and ruins them before they can even get started. Yeah, I don't really know what coach John Harbaugh I think would fit more in Chicago than Vegas. But yeah, let's keep it moving. We'll go to probably, I would say, the biggest statement game of the weekend. The Buffalo Bills shit pumping the New England Patriots 47-17.
You almost question why this game was even played.
I think Buffalo's still scoring right now.
Like, they still haven't punted. We know that. We know for the last 8 quarters of Bills Patriots football, one team ain't giving the ball back to the other without putting a touchdown on the board. This was shocking. Like I picked New England to keep it close. I thought the weather would be a little bit more of a factor. This game could have been played in Pluto, and I don't think it would have made a difference of what the scoreboard was. The Bills, whatever pissed them off about that post-game interview after that, Isaiah keeps bringing it up, that determined everything, because they have just gone out of their way to mop the floor with these guys, especially Josh Allen. Bill he don't have an answer. There's no answer for when Josh they did everything they called worked. I thought Brian Daboll could have closed his eyes, picked the play, and it would have gone for 10+ yards. That's really how this went here. They ran the ball elite. They threw the ball elite. Josh Allen threw the ball elite. And they just dominated on the offensive side of the football. Defensively, Micah Hyde had one of the most spectacular interceptions you'll ever see, covering half the field, snagging the ball for Nelson Aguilar's head, and basically letting the game. That was the end of the game, in my opinion, right there, because that was the statement that let them know, like, you guys aren't on this level. You guys can't play with us. You guys can't compete. As for New England, just a reality check. I think it was for New England, for Bill Belichick, for those guys.
They didn't beat many good teams this year.
Yeah, when you go back and look at New England, you'd be like, this was a relatively young football team, inexperienced football team compared to how their old playoff teams have been. So this was like this was their first time. Jacoby Myers, those type of guys on offense, first time.
Hunter Henry.
Obviously, Mac Jones, who I thought was the best Patriots player that played on Saturday night, but they just realized that they're just a team that's not on the level of a Buffalo Bills, of a Kansas City, those type of guys. They're a really good football team. I don't think they're 40 points worse than the Buffalo Bills on a regular day, but with the Bills playing as motivated and as high, as up tempo and as intense as they were, New England just didn't have the ability to match that. They didn't have the talent. For Bill Belichick, this is a big eyesore. This is a big red flag of because I don't think this would have happened to Tom Brady. I'm just making real. I don't believe this happens to Tom Brady. So Bill's got to sit back and
never had before.
And you can't blame Tom Brady for not giving up a punt. You got to figure out why you can't make these guys punt the ball. Like, you couldn't stop them at all. Their defense had been a little bit overrated all year. They dominated some bad teams. And I think you found out here when they go against a team that just got more talent, there's nothing they can do.
I mean, I guess Moody said it all, and it's that easy. Buffalo was better in every facet of the game. Offensively, they could pass the ball any way they wanted and run the ball any way they wanted. Josh Allen was dominant. He wasn't even running that much. Good for Buffalo because we said how much they weren't running the ball earlier this year.
Josh Allen didn't make that one guy look ridiculous.
They were breaking tackles, stiff-arming, juking,
whatever they want.
Mismatch. For the Bills' offense versus New England's defense. Of course, it was a mismatch. They didn't force a punt, and they still haven't forced a punt for 2 games now. Defensively, the Bills got up, and we found out that the Patriots their offense isn't built to come from behind with Mac Jones and the way they're built to run the football from a lead. The biggest takeaway is Bill Belichick in his first playoff game without Tom Brady in 20 years is still searching for playoff wins without Tom Brady, which doesn't bode well for the credit that he's chasing by getting rid of Tom Brady and going forward. I mean, Patriots look good. They bought a lot of free agents, so you know how that could sour quickly. Mm-hmm. I don't know where they're going in the draft. Maybe another receiver because they need weapons.
Yeah, I think just offensive weapon. Yeah, I think it's got to be their big thing. And then I say the interior of the defense. I thought they got bullied pretty badly throughout that game against Buffalo.
It was shocking to see how well Buffalo ran the ball against that front. But yeah, I mean, great season for New England, who might be ahead. They've got a rookie quarterback, got money, got Bill Belichick, so they're not gone. Mm-hmm. But I think the days of the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick,
it ain't his division no more.
It's
been taken.
Those days are over.
The torch has been passed.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that. What Moody just said, I think the owner of the division now resides in Buffalo. I just think it's incredible the rushing efficiency that Josh Allen has. I felt like I was always seeing him rush for 11 yards every time he decided to tuck it away. So good for the Bills. They're making me nervous for the Kansas City game next week. But yeah. Let's keep it moving. We'll go to Sunday, the 1:00 game between the Buccaneers and Eagles, where the Buccaneers put in the work, 31-15.
This is another one where, like, why was this game even played? What was the other team even doing here?
I guess it's clear that football's reached a saturation point.
Too many playoff teams.
No more playoff teams.
You know how I feel about oversizing playoff teams.
The 2-7 matchup, the 2 seeds should just begin to buy.
Yeah, that was a massive problem. Philly, they didn't belong there. I think it was clear from the opening. The Bucs drove 3 straight times, I think, for 3 touchdowns. Boom, boom, boom. They stopped Philly every time. Boom, boom, boom. And the game was in hand by that point. There's not really a bunch of X's and O's things to go about it. Darius Slay was trying to be an all-pro. He was complaining about it, so Mike Evans put 114 yards and a touchdown on his head to let him know you're now on this level. They ran the ball well.
I mean, they're going to keep building around him, but I think with all those first-round picks, I wouldn't be surprised if they get their names in a quarterback race for one of these better guys. But, I mean, good season for the Eagles. They're still good in the trenches. For how much longer remains to be said. I don't know where they're going. They have a lot of potential, but I'm not a big fan of their GM to execute it, as we've seen with picks like J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Jalen Reagor. His eye for talent is questionable, to say the least.
Outside the trenches.
Outside of the trenches. And so that's it for Philly. As for Tampa Bay, the only thing this proved is that without a bye, Tristan Wirfs got hurt some more. Jensen got banged up some more.
Evans got beat up a little bit.
The worst thing that happens is we're playing unnecessary football games. So this 7th seed might be unnecessary, but we'll see. It might have weakened them enough for LAR to pick the bones, which I won't be mad about. Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I hope the Rams beat the Bucs too for Green Bay's sake. But yeah, I mean, this game kind of shows if you're on the fence of too many playoff teams, this game kind of goes in your favor because this wasn't any close competition from Jump Street. Like this game was controlled by the Bucs 100% of the time. I think the Tristan Wirfs injury is massive towards how far they can go. He plays right tackle for them, right? Right tackle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that injury, protecting Tom is priority number 1 on any Tom Brady team. Giving him time where he doesn't have to be running or anything else, so he can just keep looking downfield is huge for them. As for the Eagles, I mean, I didn't think they were a playoff team even though they were. I think this is exactly how they expected this game to go. There's no shot they walked into that game thinking they were going to win. No shot.
They're professionals, Eric. Those guys are professionals.
All right, let's get to it. 49ers.
Why you sound disappointed, Eric? Well, you're not disappointed.
Eric said, let's get to it. I'm disappointed about Eric.
All right, the 49ers beat the Dallas Cowboys 23-17.
Yeah, what do you want me to say?
How about them Cowboys?
Well, I can't say that. They didn't win the football game. We'll start off with, obviously, San Francisco came in there. Everyone said it was a bad matchup, and they went out there and they proved themselves as a difficult matchup for the Cowboys to handle. Offensively, in the first half, Kyle Shanahan had it all schemed up for them. They moved the ball efficiently. They were able to create big plays on the back end with some schemed up stuff, and they ran the ball really, really well. I think Micah missing like the first part of the first quarter definitely helped them be able to establish their run game a little bit more, and they jumped out to a nice lead. Jimmy Garoppolo played decent, efficient football in the first half. They were getting the good runs after the catch. And they 16 points in the first half. They set the tone to start the game, and they managed to hang on at the end. Defensively, obviously, they lost Nick Bosa to the concussion. Fred Warner. I always get that. Fred Warner. He had a little ankle issue, but they said he's fine.
He came back in the game.
Yeah, so you expect him to be fine for next week. Defensively, their pass rush was simply outstanding throughout the entire game. Whether Nick Bosa was out there or not, they were able to put pressure on Dak Prescott. They completely took away their ability to run the football, and they did a really, really good job of limiting a very good Cowboys offense on the road. For Dallas, they Plaxico burst themselves the entire football game.
Is that a verb now?
Yeah, that's a verb now, and everyone knows what I mean. They shot themselves in the foot as much as they could whenever they needed to every time. It's hard to really get a good gauge on how well or bad they played outside of the flags. I thought when they weren't just shooting themselves in the foot, they showed that they're more than capable enough of moving the ball. They were more than capable enough of getting stops. They held San Francisco to 7 points in the second half, forced a turnover. They got all the important stops that they needed to get, but just the inability to stop beating themselves over and over again. As you saw, postseason record 14 penalties. Of the 14 penalty games this year, Cowboys had 2 of them. They led the league in penalties. They led the league in penalty yardage. They're like the Vegas Raiders. The biggest weakness of their team was their lack of discipline, and it cost them again here.
I mean, yeah, vintage Dallas Cowboys playoff loss. I picked San Francisco, and I still don't know how they were going to pull it off. The only way they could have, though, was to get up early, which unfortunately Dallas has a really aggressive flying down the field off defense. And Kyle Shanahan runs one of the most sophisticated what's the word I'm looking for?
Run offenses, run schemes?
I think the word I'm looking for is misdirection run schemes.
Yeah, very misdirection.
One of the most effective misdirection run schemes, and that's how you play an aggressive, fast-flowing defense. And we saw that. Guys were flying, and the play-action boots were killing them. Jimmy Garoppolo played great until he decided to not play great. You know, that's going to be the thing about San Francisco, which is hard to bank on Jimmy Garoppolo. He definitely tried his hardest to get Dallas back into the game with the missed throw to Brandon Ayuk, and then the pick that was just classic vintage Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think San Francisco didn't play that good of a game in the second half. Once again, Kyle Shanahan is still very bad at clock and game management. Luckily, he's an offensive genius. Big game for Deebo Samuel. George Kittle was good run blocking, not much passing wise. I think Cowboys did a good job bracketing him. They also have really good linebackers, one being Michael Parsons, and safeties like Javon Curse to take him out the game. But in the end, vintage Dallas Cowboys. That's really all I got to say about that. I said all year all their players are a little bit overrated. Amari Cooper played good, not amazing, and you'd like to see him burn the house down. Future-wise, he might get cut. He's a potential cut candidate. We'll see.
I think outturn his ACL probably bail him out of that.
Yeah. I found out that the Dallas Cowboys cap situation is interesting. They got some free agents that I don't know if they're necessary to bring back, but they were good depth pieces. Van Der Esch, who played probably his best game in the Dallas Cowboys, which, no surprisingly, that's just right before he's up for a contract. Randy Gregory, they waited it out. He's 30 years old. He's going to demand at least $10 million.
Probably his worst game of the year. He committed at least 3. He committed 3 penalties without roughing the passer.
He was tackling the offensive players. Like the old lineman.
How many D linemen get caught for 2 holds? it don't happen that often. So yeah, Randy probably cost himself plenty of money.
Cowboys going forward, they need to fix the interior of their defensive line
and offensive line.
Terrible game from Connor Williams. Biadish was out there, or was it?
Yeah, it was Biadish.
Yeah,
not Travis Frederick.
I mean, I think the biggest thing is what they going for the Cowboys is their coaching situation, because two of their assistants, major ones, are up for candidacies for head coaching jobs elsewhere. We'll see how they recover. That might take a couple years of getting new schemes, relearning players, or readjusting that. But vintage Dallas Cowboys, they don't let you down. As for San Francisco, big matchup against Green Bay, where they are undefeated versus the Packers in my lifetime.
No, the Green Bay beat them in the playoffs. Yes,
Green Bay
beat them this year.
In the playoffs,
we actually have a matchup to look back on. This will be another rematch.
You're good, Eric. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted Dallas to win this game just for the sole fact of the next round. I did not want Green Bay to see San Francisco. But yeah, sloppiness for the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, the penalties, I don't understand what Dak was doing on that last play.
We didn't talk about that.
I mean, I don't know. That's on the coach. But
that's right. That's the biggest takeaway.
The game was over.
We know for sure the Cowboys are wrongly coached because they don't know how to. They're not coaching that situation correctly. That's what everybody else is
Mike said after the post game that the referees told him he'd get an extra second. Now he's a bad coach for believing. Now that I'll thank Mike McCarthy for believing anything those guys tell him, because he has to understand that he's not in Green Bay no more.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't see what I needed to see out of Dallas, obviously. I just don't know what word I'm trying to figure out, but explosive.
Eric, you said it first. It was the sloppiness, Eric. If the 14 penalties are 7, I think we're talking about an entirely different football game here. But over and over again, I think CeeDee Lamb had 80 yards receiving, taking off the board because of penalties. So he ended up with 1 catch on 5 targets. It's just that kind of game where it's just every time they decide to make any play or try to get any momentum, they decide to make another stupid penalty.
The word you're looking for is vintage Dallas Cowboys. Continue, though, Eric.
As for San Francisco, I mean, the ways they use Debo is just impressive. The versatility that he has, and I wish I saw the Super Gremlin video of them walking out before the game. I would have bet the 49ers. But they're also using way more of Brandon Ayuk recently. I mean, he's become a weapon, I'm sure, for this game, because it looked like the Cowboys had a game plan for Kittle. So they were going other routes, and Debo was probably the second one on that list. But yeah, just a poor game from the Cowboys. I really don't know what else to say for them. San Francisco is going to be a nightmare for the Green Bay. This coming up week dictates on whether my Super Bowl predictions are going to be right, because I think if they win next week, they're going to the Super Bowl. But good for San Francisco. Shame on you, Dallas Cowboys.
We the only team that said I've heard shame all weekend. We the only team that lost, but shame.
You're the only team they were the only home playoff team.
The only team that lost.
Had your fans crying on national TV, embarrassing people.
Well, you want me to say shame on you to Las Vegas or Philly? They were just happy to be there.
Yeah, Philly locked up a playoff spot 2 weeks before. They were rested the starters. They were just barely there. They were comfortable.
All right, let's keep it moving. Sunday night game, Steelers at Kansas City. This game was fun for about a quarter and a half, and then the Chiefs turned on the engines and won 42-21.
Pittsburgh's confusing competitive for fun.
Yeah. Pittsburgh showed up at the beginning of that game, had the most spectacular first touchdown to get on the board you'll ever see. Special teams mayhem, 2 fumbles, whatever you want to call it. It was absolutely outrageous. And that's when it makes you think, oh, this might be the Pittsburgh. This might be Pittsburgh showing up to pull off some crazy finesse you ain't never seen. The defense played awesome in the first quarter. They kept them in it. And then the talent gap just made itself very, very clear as the game went on. I think Ben Roethlisberger probably played easily his best game of the season I don't even think it's close. He hadn't averaged 7 yards an attempt all year long. He hadn't averaged in 2 years. And he was well over 7 in this one. He like Ben Roethlisberger, I think like Eli Manning's last playoff game, I think he showed up to play good football. I think the rest of his team decided like we ain't supposed to be here. Ben told them this week they weren't supposed to be here, and they played like a team for the last 3 quarters that weren't supposed to be there. Defensively for Pittsburgh, their defense. That was the worst defense we've seen in 50 plus years. Looked like the worst defense we've seen in 50 plus years. Mahomes just picked them apart all day long with his spectacular playmaking, especially in the second half as they pulled away late. Pittsburgh, good last ride for Ben Roethlisberger, I guess. We won't miss you on your way out, you rapist, but we'll keep it on. We'll keep moving on from there. As for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, this was like the Bucs, a nice little tune-up game before they get into the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes threw 5 touchdowns in about 20 minutes of game time. So Chiefs went from being down to blowing out Pittsburgh, and they just had fun with them. It just looked like one team that's going somewhere, and Pittsburgh looked like it was their last ride. As for Pittsburgh going forward, I think the biggest question mark is what they do with the offensive line and quarterback.
Yeah.
If they're trying out this offensive line with Mason Rudolph next year, and if they were to go to the playoffs with that team, that'd be impressive. But I think they got to be in it for one of these veterans. But like the Giants, I believe Pittsburgh is one of those throwback organizations. They're not going to trade for another team's guy. They're going to want their own. I think Kenny Pickett is the player that they would love to fall into. Unfortunately for them, falling into the playoffs means falling away from Kenny Pickett. So, I mean, Ritter's a good fit for them, a big mobile guy with a big arm.
I think they go vet. I'd be surprised if they went young.
I just don't see teams like Pittsburgh always going veteran quarterbacks. They tend to usually want their own young guy to develop and be their franchise guy. That's just how they're old school like that. But what else you got for this game, Eric, or want to put Pittsburgh to rest in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I considered it fun because that quarter and a half, that was the only way that Pittsburgh was going to win. So it gave you at least a quarter and a half of some hope.
Thinking that it'd be a good game.
Yeah. So,
I
mean, but just the second and third quarter, the Chiefs just overpowered them offensively. I mean, they scored 21 in the second quarter, 14 in the third. I mean, that's going to silence that's going to silence 95% of the teams. So good for them. I'm hoping Kansas City gets a redemption for Buffalo this coming up week, but we'll go into picks later this week. Sayonara, Big Ben. I had no emotional attachment to him, so it's not really that big of a deal for me. But Patrick Mahomes doing his thing. I mean, he was also efficient. He was 39 for 30 for 39, sorry. Just a great game, and I think this also proves that we don't need 7 teams in the playoffs. All right, let's go to the Monday night game. I expected this one to be the most competitive game out of all of them. Did not turn out that way. Rams, I think, deserve a shutout, winning 34-11.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals look like a team that was missing their best player, and they just didn't have any.
Murray was out there.
He's not their best player. The best player is the guy that they stole from the Houston Texans, and offensively, that looked like a team.
They haven't done anything since he's left.
They desperately missed him in this one. Kyler Murray looked lost. He looked harassed. He looked confused. He looked like a guy playing in his first playoff game ever. Not the ideal debut for a guy with so much talent and so much hype around him and their team after being the last remaining unbeaten.
It's gonna be hard to think about that season.
It'll be rough. Obviously, once again, the Rams D-line just continues to overwhelm the Cardinals offensive line. Kyler's escapability made sure there was only 2 sacks, but there could have been 3, 4, 5 more.
They could have sacked him all night.
They could have did it all night. There was no plays to be made on the offensive end for those guys. And then Kyler, with poor decision-making and poor accuracy, put the game to bed midway through the second quarter with the pick 6. Not a whole lot to say for them. J.J. Watt didn't really make a much of an impact in this one.
He gets a participation trophy.
Trophy for showing up, but like the key players that got their big free agents acquisitions and trade and DeAndre Hopkins and J.J. Watt weren't really available to make difference-making plays for them. And they didn't have anybody else to make difference-making plays for them. So I guess a star-studded team like LAR, It was just they just got ushered out in a very unceremonious fashion. For LAR, congrats to Matthew Stafford on getting his first playoff win. Very, very efficient. Very, very easy. Did not have to do a whole lot in this one at all. I thought Sean McVay did a good job scheming the stuff open on for his receivers to get him his rhythm going early. They made plenty of plays as well. Ran the ball fine. They were Cam Akers being back off the corner killers is just insane that he's back. But
he looked
back
good
and he looks explosive and looks like he's ready to go. Defensively, Aaron Donald he's too big of a problem for the Cardinals to deal with. And now with Von Miller being out there paired on, they were just overwhelmed by that pass rush, overwhelmed by that front seven, and they just no ability to make plays on the back end with the lack of time that Kyler Murray had. And just the poor game that Kyler Murray played. It's just got to, we'll keep it as simple as that. LAR, they were the dominant team at home. They took care of business here. They got a big test on the road against Tampa Bay, the biggest game in Matthew Stafford's career for the second week in a row. We'll see how he looks there. For Arizona, they pushed the all-in button, and none of the guys they pushed all in with were available. So they're going to have to strap up next year. Hope J.J. Watt doesn't fall off too much of a cliff from his injuries, and Chandler Jones.
If I just get hurt, that's the problem.
Offensively, they have to find another playmaker outside of DeAndre Hopkins on the offensive end. James Conner is he's a good story.
He came back, yeah.
He's a good story, but he's not a playmaker at the running back position. They don't really have a playmaker at tight end. You like Rondell Moore, you like Christian Kirk. Those are small, young guys. Nobody who's really going to make any.
Kirk's actually up for a contract this year.
Really, yeah. So that's a decision they have to make. AJ Green's old. They got to find more playmakers on the offensive end to pair with Kyler Murray and his ability to be dynamic on the offensive end. And then are we putting eyes on Cliff Kingsbury about the performance, or did he get a pass because they're just happy to make a playoff spot?
Oh no, he's probably sad that he didn't take that Oklahoma job. For the Rams, I'll just knock out the Rams first. They were dominant. Matthew Stafford played efficiently. On offense, I'll say the Cardinals did bracket Cooper Kupp really well. They kept them to one catch through three quarters.
So Odell threw a 40-yard bomb because that's the kind of game.
Now Odell Beckham Jr. did have his biggest playoff game of his career, first career touchdown. Big 40-yard throw on the play that the Giants literally ran a few years ago against Carolina. But the Rams, luckily Tampa Bay they get a wounded duck Tampa Bay Bucks, the most wounded we've ever seen. So it's now or never for them. As for Arizona, Kyler Murray decided to join Matthew Stafford and Carson Wentz in the bad pick six club. You got to know when you're in the end zone that sometimes a safety is better than a pick six, and we saw that this year every time. So I guess more people will try to take those safeties, but the biggest play that they missed, though, they had Christian Kirk and Rondell Moore running in the same area, wide open behind the defense, and the ball lands right between both guys, and they both say that they're pointing to the next guy to go get it. Missed opportunities all night long. Kyler Murray played the worst game I've ever seen him play. He looked, even though he was flustered, even though I thought they protected as good as they could. Aaron Donald was a monster. Von Miller was a monster, but Kyler was just making bad decisions. Threw a ball off a running back's helmet that landed in a defensive lineman's head. Just all around bad. And I think that we can see that he's a gimmick. He's a gimmicky type of player that if you don't have,
I think he's playing in a gimmicky offense. I think he himself can be successful in other areas, but with their lack of playmaking and stuff like that, he's limited to being just a gimmick at this point.
Not surprisingly, Cliff Kingsbury wasn't any type of multiplier to anything the team was doing. Just bad all around. Going forward, they need to fix the interior of their offensive line because they're playing Aaron Donald 2 times a year, and he was whipping up on that right guard all day long like he was the last game. Mm-hmm. So Rams, like the Buffalo Bills, turn the story. Those first half of the season wins aren't always what they seem to be. They matter clearly, but sometimes, it's easier to get better teams when they're earlier in the season than later when they're firing on all cylinders. Eric?
Yeah, it sounded like there for a little bit you were letting the Cardinals offensive line off the hook. It was incredible to watch the pass rush that the Rams had. That's the formula you need next week. Be able to have those 4 guys get after it because it looked like every passing play, Hike, and he was immediately running to one of the sides because they were already through his offensive lineman. They thought they had their interior lineman with Rodney Hudson getting him this offseason. That clearly did not help at all. How many times did he get sacked?
Only twice.
He
got away enough.
He threw a pick six instead of taking the safety in the end zone, and he He could have got sacked on that screen play through the pick too. That's kind of
like
he chose to throw interception instead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, more playmakers. I mean, obviously you have D-Hop, but this game shows the holes that you have past your elite players, and I think that's what makes championship teams the way they are, is that not the next man up mentality, but having quality in the next man up. It's not just having a body to put there. You need to have someone there to make plays. I would not throw the bag at Kirk, so I think they should be able to get him on a decent contract for them.
You know how these other teams.
Yep, I'm pretty sure they picked Kirk over Metcalf too. Just like they get to be scapegoated, but he was like the first pick in the second round, so they get scapegoated for avoiding that. But they could have a DK or a Terry McLaurin type of guy too. So if we're gonna laugh at Philly and we're gonna laugh at some of these other guys, we gotta laugh at Arizona
no, the
too.
Pick actually, it's not Kirk. The pick you're talking about is Andy Isabella. He was the pick they made, and the other guy,
so Kirk's the third round.
Hakeem Butler. Those were the two.
They drafted like 4 receivers that year, and none of them were DK Metcalf.
Or Deebo Samuel or Scary Terry McLaurin.
Exactly.
Yeah. But as for the Rams, that's that game plan or the way that you went about handling the Cardinals is exactly how you need to be for Tampa Bay. Have that ferocious pass rush to keep Tom Brady off balance, off kilter, all that stuff. Jalen to be able to handle Mike Evans, and that should be a good enough defensive game plan. Now, the questions for the Rams in this matchup is, with a healthy Bucs defense, what is Matthew Stafford going to do? But we'll talk more about that later this week. In this game, Stafford did exactly what he needed to win this game. Didn't turn the ball over. 2 touchdowns. I mean, he did what he had to do. It wasn't a special night, but congrats on the first playoff win.
Yeah, all of our Super Bowl picks continue to survive. Now, most of us did pick Tennessee and or Green Bay, so they couldn't get eliminated, which is what we found out probably was the best thing about this week, is that you didn't want to be playing in it. And is it consensus that Josh Allen would be the player of the week, in our opinion?
I don't know if Josh Allen is, because his whole team played at an A+ level. Like nobody on that team played bad. So I'm gonna give mine to Pat Mahomes, because I think
his whole team played on another level.
I think some of the other. I think he had to do a little bit more playmaking himself. That's why he got. Other than his game was competitive for longer. So I'll give mine to Patrick Mahomes. You can't go wrong with Josh Allen. You can't go wrong with Josh Allen.
I'll go Joe Burrow. I'll go Joe Burrow with mine. Getting the city
after the whistle.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
just Vegas.
And how the NFL said he caught the ball before the whistle is nuts. But
Eric, they cut the ref. When they cut the ref, they let you know, yeah, they fucked up, but this is Vegas, so we don't care. We'll just move on.
Yeah.
But I catch you, Eric.
Yeah.